ActionSA is being accused of trying to force Gauteng's coalition government into a relationship with the EFF. Now, the party says a working relationship with the fighters is the only way to save coalitions in the Gauteng metros. But here is the problem. The coalition includes the DA, EFF+, IFP, ACDP and COPE. They don't want to work with the Red Berets. So where does it leave us? Where does it leave those who went out and voted not too long ago in the local government elections? Political analyst Dumisani Tembe joining us this morning on that to get the views of Dumisani. Hello to you, Dumisani. Always good to have you with us. So we had the flirting, we had the marriage. Now the honeymoon phase is over, and it seems not all of us are getting on as well as we would have hoped the political parties would. What do you think's happened? Dumisani, sorry, let me stop you quickly. I see your microphone is on mute. Maybe just unmute that for me and then start again for me if you don't mind. Thanks so much, Dumisani. There we go.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I think what has happened is that the coalition has been faulty from the beginning, because these are the coalitions that were forced upon political parties by the outcome of the election that they went through. These are not coalitions that are formed based on a common vision on what needs to be done to develop local communities. And next to that, these are coalitions that are formed as an anti-ANC coalition. So they were never going to work in the first place. I don't think political parties in Gauteng as a whole, in the metros, are ready to have coalition government, because these are coalitions of convenience. These are coalitions where the political elite try to safeguard themselves to remain in power. But the big thing here, which I see, I think this gives us a sense of what the transition into a South Africa which is not led by an ANC government is going to look like. So that transition, it is going to be chaotic. And I think for me, what we see in the metros is beginning to give us a sense of the transition, that is how the transition is going to look like from a South Africa which is led by the ANC into a South Africa in the near future, which is going to be led by a coalition of political parties that excludes the ANC. So it's going to be chaotic.
Let me ask you this question. Of all the political parties that I mentioned, let me just remind viewers, they may have missed the start of this. This coalition in the big Gauteng metros includes the DA, EFF+, IFP, ACDP and COPE. All of them seemingly, unless you want to differ with me on this, seem to be working together at least partly harmoniously. But all of them seem to have an issue with the EFF. So who do you think's at fault here? Is it the EFF for the way that they would like to do their politics? They are wrong or they are right? Or have all the other coalition parties got it wrong or right?
Look, the problem is bigger, because you see, the problem of South African multi-partyism is that there are numbers but not the quality. The quality substance of our politicking, of our political parties and the political leadership, it is very weak. So if there was a substantive quality in political leadership, they wouldn't necessarily exclude the EFF. Rather, they will plan on how to deal and manage the EFF. So when political parties and leaders begin to say they can't work with this one and that party, it means that they lack the capacity and the ability to engage with other political parties. So the problem is the quality of the political leadership.
I'm curious on a point you made a moment ago. Let me ask you just to elaborate on that. You mentioned the possibility going forward of a multi-party democracy, a multi-party coalition national government. If that is potentially what it could become one day, this kind of situation could be very damaging for the country if on a national level the coalition national government might not work. Is this a good dry run to get all the creases out of the way before we get to that point?
Yeah, look, I like your term. It's a very good dry run. I think there are very strong possibilities that from the next general election, you might have a coalition government at the national level that excludes the ANC, or alternatively, it includes the ANC with other smaller political parties. But I think what the essence of trying to say is that at the chaos that you see in the coalition government in the cities of Tshwane, city of Joburg and Ekurhuleni, it is highly likely to be replicated at the National Assembly level.
Let me leave this as a last question to you, Dumisani, just very briefly if you can. ActionSA being accused of trying to force this coalition with the EFF in Gauteng. What do you make of that accusation?
I don't think it's the ActionSA that is forcing the inclusion of the EFF into the coalition. It is the result of the election that does so. But also, if they have to pass the budget, then they need an outright majority. They need the EFF. So they need a smarter way of engaging the EFF rather than excluding it.
Oh, we'll leave it there for now. I always appreciate speaking to you. Dumisani Tembe on the South African Morning for us, political analyst. Very, very tricky as far as coalition governments are concerned. We all knew that going into the elections. We discussed it during the elections. We discussed it during the results. And clearly you can see just how complicated it gets when you have ActionSA, EFF, DA, FF+, IFP, ACDP and COPE. You can imagine just how tricky that can get.